My apologies, guys. It's 6 o'clock. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Do you mind standing with me to say the Pledge of Allegiance? It's not on here, but let's do it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I'm going to do roll call. Councilman McGoffin?
Present.
Councilman Burns?
Present.
Councilwoman Kesty?
Present.
Councilman Allen?
Present.
And Councilman Lavaca?
Present.
And Councilwoman Diamond and Councilman Owen are out for the evening. If there's no objection, we'll just move forward and excuse them. Awesome. Perfect, okay.
Madam Mayor, do you need,
A motion?
Chuck called me today, and if he needs an excuse or whatever, so.
Well, we just did that, but if you think it's important to make a motion, I'll certainly let
Well,
you do
no,
that.
he asked me, so it's not critical.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Okay, moving on to new business, we'll start with the Public Safety Committee and Councilwoman Kesty. That is you.
So in our public safety meeting, I don't really have anything for us to report to go over that is different than what you guys have already heard, because they've presented everything with the fire levy and the cars with the police officers. So I actually, in this committee, don't have anything to bring forward that we don't already know.
All right, very good. Are there any questions for Councilwoman Kesty?
I do, if you don't mind. So on that Committee for Safety, is there anything that is getting proposed or that's in there? Is it all basically centered around the fire levy?
So far, everything brought forward has been brought forward by the administration, nothing as far as the group.
Okay.
Anything else? If not, we'll go ahead and we'll move on. The next one is Finance and Information Technology. Councilman Lavaca.
So thank you, Madam Mayor. So finance and technology, we've gone through and had a couple meetings and we've talked about the packets. We've discussed a little bit of that up here. We so far haven't had anything to bring forth to the council. We've had good reviews, and a little bit of that's been about the fire and the fire department levy. The technology, we've discussed the website, and I think that's been on there for a while. There's hopes to get that done by this year, but it has been something that has been discussed for a while. And so I think the intent is to be interactive with the website and to create some subsections, and especially for the Parks and Rec. Parks and Rec were number one on the strategic planning meetings that we've had, and the number one topic for a lot of that motion forward. So it'd be nice to see that included in technology with the website design. So I'm looking forward to seeing that turn up, but so far nothing. There was the idea proposed to see a bit more transparency with finances in the finance section. It has been updated. When I first came on, there was a lot of missing material, which is great, and I thank Kelly for doing that. And so it still is a little tough to read if I was, if for the layman's to go in there. It'd be nice to see some charts, and that's something I think that we're continuing to work on. We'll see where that goes.
Okay. Any questions for Councilman Lavaca? Yes, go ahead, Councilwoman Kesty.
Wasn't one of the items that we were going to be bringing forward something along the lines of where the money goes, what can be spent, how is it spent, especially with the newcomers that will be coming in? I think that, Charlie, we had mentioned something like that last time, and I'm just very excited to see that and be able to, have it right in front of us. This is where this is pulled from. This is how you can't take money from here to pay these things.
Because of may I go ahead? May I go ahead and answer that? Because of how in-depth it is, because of the process of that, we thought that it would be very helpful if after the first of the year, when we bring on the new council members, that there then be a step-by-step, so that instead of like drinking from the fire hose, you'd be able to get it in bite sizes, so that hopefully within the first 3 months, everybody would be fully aware about how the budget works and what's in it and what to look at. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. Yes, go ahead, Councilman Burns.
If we're able to edit that to a way that could be easily put on the website, that'd be fantastic for the
Okay.
public to have that accessibility of clicking on a page and having little tutorials essentially like the council got. That would be a great way to do it, I think.
Okay.
I appreciate that idea.
Tutorials, I like that idea too. All right, anything else?
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Councilman Coffin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. One of the things I've heard a few times now when we're talking about the new levy coming up is how we spent Prop 1 money. Is that something that we can look at of like from when it was passed to when we started collecting, where like that money has been spent? Like, I know we've hired new officers, but I think it'd be really helpful for the public to see, here's this new tax we put on everyone, and then here's what you guys got. Because I think now we've hired people, we've purchased equipment. I think that would be really helpful if we're
And we're
gonna.
getting ready to hire somebody else, so, yeah. I am sure that that can be done. I don't know that we can get it right down to the last dime and nickel, but I'm sure that we can easily lay out for you everything that has been purchased, the training, the equipment, the new vehicles, but more importantly, the staff that we've brought on, the police officers that we've brought on. So absolutely, we can do that, sure. Okay, thank you. Good suggestion, actually. Anyone else?
I have one more, if you don't mind.
Yes.
Something I'd love to see the committee look at is trying to find the absolute simplest way. This might be for finance instead, but the 1% tax increase that's available to the city, kind of explaining the breakdown of how that works in the most simple way that
Oh,
someone can come
perfect.
up with.
Yeah, yeah.
Would be fantastic.
I do believe that we could probably dust off Mr. Merriman's slides. I think we can do that, make that happen. Okay.
Yeah, I think for the committee, one of the things that has been suggested, I think back to when, well, I know when I first came on, was just better financial transparency on that section of our website and easy read understanding. So if it's Prop 1, how's it spent? If it's the drill down chart, whether it's Power BI or another system that we use in here, the revenue streams that come in, and then the expenditures that are associated with that, with a little bit more detail than general fund and things like that. And then understanding, like, if we do a tax or an increase, how that is spent, and people can click on that and see a subsection on where that money is, where it's going, and what it looks like in the future, just so that when questions are asked going door to door or being with the community, there is a place we can pull up our laptop, our phone, or whatever, and show them. And so that's been a focus of mine and a desire of mine. I brought it up in the committees quite a few times. I think I was asked to do it myself on one of them, but I simply just, I don't have the time. It's not my forte. I'm not a financial director or anything like that, so it's not something that I would want to take on necessarily. But it is something that I think that would be nice to see, and I think that would be in agreement with the council. So.
All right, very good. And you were talking, when you were talking about the one that we passed with the police officers, correct? Okay, good. I just wanted to clarify that. Yeah, Councilman
Madam
Allen?
Mayor,
Yeah.
just to answer Joe's question, the way it works is it comes out of this wallet and it goes to the city.
Well,
Tell me, I mean, that's-
and the school,
But, you
and
know,
the
I'm just
hospital
trying to do
district,
this
and the.
Finance 101. And,
Yeah, it's a little more involved than that, but you're right, it does come straight out of our wallets, and we feel it, don't we?
Yes, I do notice the lightness of it after.
All right, if there's nothing else, Councilman Lavaca? No? Okay, and Councilwoman Diamond is not here for Strategic Committee. I don't know, Charlie, if you would like to address some of that?
Yeah, I brought the minutes from the last meeting. They were in the
Right.
packet as well, so everybody's probably seen these, but just a really quick recap. They were talking about going from 1 year to 2 years for the council committees. The council approved that change at the last meeting. They were also talking about strategic planning for basically how to get into strategic planning in 2024, and the goal is to do that first quarter. The first January work session would be a Budget 101. This isn't the city's budget. This is a how do cities' budgets work presentation. So just very basic pieces of all the different funds and how they work. Then the January regular meeting after that, we would do what Councilwoman Kesty was getting at, which is the Sedro-Woolley budget briefing, which will take the same concepts from the first week and then in the second week actually show those and show how those apply to our budget. And then the February work session, so a few weeks later, would be the goal setting. So it's setting the stage, at least for folks to have the financial knowledge as they go into goal setting.
So we took what you said, took what you and Sarah said, and laid it out, hoping that that was a good plan. We think it's a good plan. Is there any objection to that?
I think it's great.
Okay.
Yeah, we also talked about the ER&R funding. It's the same briefing that the whole council got right after the committee meeting. So that was brought up as well. And just a quick comment on the transparency, financial transparency piece. There is budget software that can do that can allow for all kinds of transparency, even like drilling down real time. But right now, a lot of what you see from Kelly is produced, it's extracted from Springbrook, and then she is manually having to create spreadsheets. So it's difficult for us to do that in any way that's going to be very live for us. So that's something we'll have to look at in terms of what would it take budget-wise to get the software in place? What would the integration with Springbrook look like? We would want to do it in a very automated way, if at all possible, right? So that we're not constantly having our staff manipulate stuff by hand.
So something else that we also talked about is the possibility of, because AWC, probably MSRC, they would have actually some sort of tutorial or actually a presentation that we could go over that would talk about exactly how the budget works. So maybe that might be a good start as well, putting that into place so people have a general idea of what's happening, and then maybe we can start applying it to our own budget. We're still, as Charlie said, we're still trying to figure out how we're going to do that. We're taking it with all sincerity and seriously, and want to present it in a way that is cohesive and understandable. So.
About a year ago, we sent Nick or Kelly down to, was it Las Vegas, I believe it was, for the Springbucks conference. And so one of the things I requested for her was to see if they do have a plugin capable of doing drill down charts and data entry that would be automated. And she said that they did, she believed, but that she would look into it. And then I brought it up at a few other meetings. I think that Springbrook does have that capability. It's a plugin, so we wouldn't need to do another software integration with them or, possible data breach or anything like that from having two different networks trying to work together. But that is a possibility with this software, I believe. So it would be helpful. And if there's a conference, it'd be cool to come back with like a brief of like, hey, this is what we learned, this is what we can do with our new software, this is what we got. Or if we're going to go down for like any conference, really coming back with like a thing that they learned, things to take home, takeaways of do's and don'ts maybe, or new exciting technologies. So maybe something to throw out there.
Okay, thank you. All right, anything else, Mr.?
Just a question for council. I don't know if any of you had a chance to look at the chief's presentation on Proposition 1 for the fire levy lift, but we recorded a presentation. It's a PowerPoint presentation, so it's got a small video of the chief in the corner, and he's covering the slides. That's the kind of thing we could do for putting this budget information on the website, which was brought up from the presentations we do in January. We could essentially go and record those on PowerPoint in our offices as well and put those out on the website on YouTube. So if folks think that's would be a good approach, that's one thing we could certainly do. It'd be the easiest, most efficient way for us to get that information out to the public.
Thank you.
I just have one more thing to add since that's under the strategic planning. I appreciate everybody working together to turn it back into 2 years, because I know that, 1 year is just not enough time to make an impact on a committee. And with that, I have a question, because I know that myself and other council members have brought up ideas, and I want you to help me understand how it is that we can't see our ideas come to fruition, but the Arts Commission can come in and propose the exact same things, and they're getting steam to go ahead. So how is it as council members we can take our ideas and move them forward? So I would like to know that.
I think what's helpful, oftentimes there are things, this meeting is a good example, where folks are making individual comments about this would be great, that would be great. Sometimes it's really helpful for the council to make a motion on something. So we as staff, and this happens in our council meetings a lot, we're over here trying to capture what's going on, but we can't go and act on individual things. I mean, we're looking for a majority of you wanting to get something done. Otherwise, we would be down rabbit holes with council members all day long. So I think that's where council can be really helpful to staff in giving us good, clear direction. If in doubt, make a motion. We can do a better job as well of saying, hey, wait, like we're not really clear on that. But I think there is a mis-expectations issue that comes up sometimes where there's a sense that, hey, I said this at council, why isn't it happening? And sometimes it's because staff have not gotten the sense that the council as a group wants to go there. So I think that's one way we could improve it.
Because one of the items that I saw was beautifying like the railroad trestle. And I remembered Councilmember Lavaca putting a lot of time and effort into one of the committees, and it was absolutely brilliant and beautiful. And so to see it like kind of, I guess, not get to happen, and then you see it on a committee that someone else had already put in the time and effort as an elected official, I just want to make sure that the elected officials are actually getting the time and heard, and not just having it passed on somewhere else.
Something like
Is-
that oftentimes, though, does go to other committees.
Yeah.
When they go to other committees, they make it happen.
Yeah. Is there a way to have like, because the minutes we keep on those meetings aren't very clear. And so we don't have a way to kind of go through and be like, hey, there were some good ideas on there and kind of hit them up. On that particular idea, that was unanimous through in the committee to move forward on it. But it was difficult to have like dialogue with the city to actually produce that. And I think even in that meeting, you were saying, yeah, I think there's money or there's effort within the city to do that, but we never created any dialogue. There was never anything to kind of move forward. I'm partially to blame on that, of course, but I think that is a collaboration, so it's nice. There's other ones that were voted not to do, right? And that's fine, and so we don't do that. But I think that, just a clear understanding, if there's a committee that the majority of the committee kind of wants to do something, maybe there, we can get follow-up from the executive branch on what's the best steps to take on going forward with this. Like, okay, yeah, this idea came through and you guys all voted on it, and so this is a good way to maybe move ahead, or would you like to make a motion? Should we move forward with a better formulated plan? So that would be helpful with that end, and seeing a little bit more fortitude with it.
Yeah, if it's helpful at all, what's in the council governance manual is a procedure by which the council essentially takes something up. And what I've recommended to committee chairs is, if the committee votes something out and you want to take it to council at that point, the committee chair should bring that up to the full council. And you've seen that happen, I think, with Council Member Diamond, where essentially it's, hey, our committee has voted this out, and I'm looking for a second. The procedure is, if a council member brings it up and somebody seconds it, then it goes on the next agenda for discussion by the full council. No staff work is done at that point. It's just the council as a group deciding whether or not a majority of you want us to do more.
Okay.
And then once we get clear direction from a majority of you wanting to do more, then we're off to the races and we're doing stuff.
Yeah, it might be something that we think about at another year, new council committees, is like, can there be a committee page on the website where you're seeing the ideas in real time? And then we can hey, we did see that in this committee, this got mentioned or whatnot. There's some in there where the notes just aren't there. So it's hard to know on what happened, or was there any great ideas that we as a body can bring to the council, or to then take it back to the city. So something to look at in the next.
Yeah, we're trying to keep a balance on summary minutes versus verbatim minutes, and that's mainly a staff load issue. I know we don't turn minutes around very quickly sometimes, so we're trying to get better at that. One thing that also can occur is if a plan comes out. So we're working on an economic development strategy right now in business planning and business development. If that committee passes that out, comes to the full council, and it gets seconded, and then it kind of goes through the process of the council. If that plan were to be adopted, then the stuff in that plan is the stuff we would march to and go after. So that's another way to capture some of that stuff. And I know that the sign at the railroad crossing has been a discussion there as well. I think Councilmember Lavaca, you've been part of that. For what it's worth, we found an agreement recently. The Chamber did, actually. The Chamber approached us with an agreement, I believe it was from 1972, between the Chamber and WashDOT, asking for permission to go over WashDOT right away with that exact idea. So
It was
it's
just
not
BNSF.
It was BNSF.
Yeah, it was BNSF.
Thank you. And so this is not a new idea. It's been around a long time. I think, you know, there's energy behind it, and one way or another, I think we'll figure something out here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Received a lot of input
it was brought
actually
up
from
a
the
lot more before that. And I think the reason why I was like, oh, well, how about we build on either side of it is because we couldn't build on it. In fact, that picture right there, I believe, is from that railroad trestle. So, and that's kind of where I got the idea. Yeah, it's a pretty cool picture. It's a little historicness of us. So, awesome.
It's Councilman Burns.
Sorry, for clarity for me, I might have missed something. The Arts Commission, are they currently working on a plan for the trestle?
No. We're having a discussion about it. We're having a discussion about a lot of things, but we're not working on a plan.
Okay, so just one of the things they brainstormed about, not something that's been deep in the works?
Right.
Okay, I was misunderstanding what was being brought forward.
I think it would be helpful if the minutes from their meetings would be more in-depth, because you can only, what you see is just, you know, the agenda type like items on it. So if that were more in-depth, there would be less questions.
Just to clarify, minutes from the Arts Commission? Okay.
Which, by the way, I was told that they actually don't have to be listed. We can just list them on the website.
Yeah. If I can ask a question about the strategic planning committee.
Just a moment, Councilman
yeah, sorry
McLaughlin
about
had-
Thank you. I just wanted to kind of close the loop on the discussion we've been having too. It's still open to discuss, but from what I understand, this particular idea, I was in favor of that too. I like, you know, pursuing it. I think Councilman Lavaca had a great motivation behind it. And I just want to clarify that it's the responsibility, right, of the chair, right? That's what I'm hearing? So like,
Yes.
it sounds like there was a little bit of a miscommunication on like the next step forward, but like moving forward to address Councilman Kesty's point, like in a committee, if we all come to a consensus, like, hey, this is what we want to do, then it's like the chair's responsibility in the next meeting. Is that correct?
In
And then-
the council meeting itself,
right,
yes.
to bring
yes,
that forward. So like,
Yes.
to, you know, fix this for next time, that's something maybe we can all work on is, hey, this is a great idea. Let's bring it now to the council, and then we can push and get the staff. Am I understanding that flow correctly?
Yeah, I think I didn't understand that. It was the first committee I was on. It was within the first couple of meetings. We didn't have a lot of meetings. And of course, there's a lot of energy for great projects like that. So once it got through, I don't think I fully understood. Like, I didn't want to bring it to the council without having support from the city is what I was thinking, when instead it's the council that sets the agenda for the city or the policy that the city goes to. So I was thinking it was the other way around. I was hoping to get approval from the city to bring it to the council, but in reality, the council approves and then sends it through to the city to work on. So that was my bad, and I just didn't understand at the time. But the strategic planning, if I may, when we did the meeting and a couple meetings we've had, Parks and Recs was a pretty big part of that, and there is a committee for Parks and, or not Parks and Rec, but Public Works. But I was just wondering, in the strategic planning, is there any discussion on any of that, or any of the items that were discussed in the strategic planning meeting we had? I'm trying to because we had that strategic day planning thing, and then we also have had different discussions since then, and topics and ideas. Are those topics in the strategic planning meetings, or are those passed and then different things are discussed? I guess that might be more for Sarah or for Charlie too.
Yeah, I can speak a little bit to what the Strategic Planning Committee has discussed previously. So, one of the first things we did in one of the first meetings with them is talk about the strategic plan, the operating, departmental operating plan. You got your goals, and then the departments have their plan to implement, and how that best could be reported out to the council, and kind of what that committee wanted to see. And it turned into the first quarter report that you saw, and then the second quarter report that you saw. Talking with that committee, they thought, hey, we could put it on information. We don't necessarily need a deep dive at it every time. But they have not gone into those individual items. I think the view has been that strategic planning is kind of about the process of strategic planning, making sure we're reporting out and closing the loop and having goal setting when we need to. But it hasn't necessarily been about, let's deep dive into these things. I think in part because it could create some confusion if, for example, strategic planning dives into Parks and Rec a lot, and Public Works has a discussion about Parks and Rec. It could become a kind of who's on first dueling committee scenario. So we just want to be careful about that.
So one is like an overarching thing that finance kind of, oh, there's a piece of that. Public Works says, oh, here's a piece of this, and different ones. And then we have the strategic planning that's more of a short-term, down lower field, and then those guys are looking at different areas and possibly touching on some of the areas that might be feeding back into the upper echelon of the strategic plan.
Yeah, strategic planning, I look at it as kind of the process planning committee, if it makes sense. And so like one of the things we're going to be talking about is the goal setting session for February. What does that look like? What does that want to look like as we get a little closer, probably at the next meeting? Looking at some drafts of these presentations on the budget stuff as well, so we can get some feedback on, is this kind of what you had in mind? Is this what you think will work, or should we tweak this somewhat? So it's been helping us with things like that. But for the other committees, they're going more to I think, deep into the topics themselves. And then for the full council, you're getting these reports quarterly on how we're doing in these areas. Some things have changed since we set those goals and put those operating plans together. One thing that's changed is ARPA. We had assumed that we would have ARPA to spend on certain things, and while it's still categorized that way, I wouldn't recommend we go start spending a bunch of that without looping back to the council at this point, given some of the conversations we've had in the last year or so.
One last thing on the overall. I think in the beginning of the year when we assign the committee members, or we have the initial thrust forward, it might be cool just to do a quick tutorial or quick introduction to committees as a meeting in itself, and bring all of the council members to go and go, here's what we do in meetings. This is how you move something through. This is things that we vote on or topics we've had in discussion. Here's a way that other members can see what's going on in those meetings, and then be able to kind of weigh in. Once we kind of have that, and especially with new council members coming on and that continually happening, maybe at the second year, instead of doing the full run, it could be, here's a refresher of that, or is there any discussion we can have, and just have a meeting kind of designated for the committees, because it's such an important role for the city, and it's such a crucial thing that each council member kind of takes on as part of their role. We sit here in the policy and we go through the packets, but one of the niches that we get to really get our feet wet with is the committee meetings, and it's really, or the committees, and being able to kind of get in there and get a little dirty and see how that works out, and understand how do we get things moving through and things moving forward. So that might be something that we would want to do just for future councils, and I think that would save a little bit of time. It might require support from the executive branch, or it might be something that we have as a template and that we're able to pull out an outside consultant or something for that time, or whatever, however that works.
Yeah, I think that's something that would make lives easier. One of the things that's important to keep in mind is we went through the COVID-19 pandemic time period, and we didn't do any committees. And so it was almost a total reboot, right, for the city to kind of get back into these with, I think, a whole bunch of new council members who hadn't necessarily been a part of council committees, a new city administrator, a bunch of new things. So we've been kind of figuring out together, and we've been iterating this as we go. We had more committees to start with, and then we cut down the number. We've changed the terms, so we're figuring out as we go along, and I think the discussion, the feedback's good and helpful. So thank you.
I can tell you, I do enjoy the committees, and I do enjoy being able to chew on a project or see something come through, and that could bring a lot of a feeling of appreciation and success to me personally as a council member, being involved in a committee and seeing a project through that kind of spearheading it forward. So that's always good. I know that Kevin Lloyd probably saw that with the skate park. And that was kind of what I was thinking. I was like, oh, this one came about, and then it got moved all the way forward. And when I talked to the owners of the skate park, or to the wave board, they were very excited about that. So it's cool to see.
All right, thank you. Moving on to the Public Works Committee, Councilman McGoffin.
Thank you. So a couple of the things we've been talking about on the Public Works is the sidewalks. So from around town, there's a few areas that have been kind of cited as being safety issues. So in our last committee meeting, we talked about some of those particular areas, and we wanted to start studying those and seeing what type of options we have. And then a lot of the meetings are also status updates, so those get brought to council. I think a lot of people have seen those. But what we wanted to do in the next meeting is going to be mostly utility adjustments and rates. But on the horizon of that is going to be meeting with the Arts Commission and also going over the Sedro-Woolley Economic Development Action Plan as a second look on this committee. And I think Charlie could probably speak a little bit more to that. But one of the things that came out of the Planning and Business Committee was that we should be looking to see what the Arts Commission is going to be doing in parks, and having the parks groups and our committee work together with them and brainstorm. So we're hoping in 2024 to do that, because the last meeting we have is going to be mostly focused on utility rates. So, Charlie, did you want to add in on that?
No, I talked with Mark briefly on it, and yeah, that's what I understood. He's got 45 minutes to go through all the utility rate issues and a full utility rate report at the next Public Works meeting. So that's why that's pretty tight. So the only way to do it this year would be to have a special meeting if we wanted to do that, or just to wait until next year to have that conversation with the Arts Commission.
If I may, would it make sense to pursue bringing Parks and Rec out of Public Works and making it either its own committee or adding in a strategic planning? Parks and Rec was the #1 topic that was brought up during our main meeting, and it's one of the best, in my opinion, assets that we have in Sedro-Woolley as an opportunity to really give our residents something to enjoy, and with their families, with family visiting, with tourists, with people coming through, and just seeing that circuit really mature and come together. Not just a park here, a park there, but something that links them all together and really blossoms them. And that takes focus and it takes work. And that being the #1 subject back then, 2 years ago, it just we haven't seen any motion on it really. We've seen parks come up or ideas of parks, but in general, they're one-offs, and we're not seeing it come together as that. So it would be nice to have that focus. I don't want to delegate that task to an art commission, and I appreciate the input from the Arts Commission, and that would be good. But a committee that we have within the council is going to be a lot closer to home, and have the ability to kind of take closer action, further action, forward action, and be able to present information or ideas from people that are elected from the city residents that are trying to push that forward. But still taking in from the Arts Commission ideas and weighing out things. So.
We actually have a Parks Commission, and it's made up of the public, and it just didn't come together because of COVID. But
It's on the page, but there's nobody listed. It hasn't been listed.
and we just haven't had opportunity to do that. But certainly, I can tell you that the Arts Commission has already talked about getting together with the Parks Commission and doing. They really believe in partnerships, and that's what they want to do with their.
So I'm thinking not a commission that's appointed people throughout, but people that elected officials here in the council to have ownership over that as a committee. And not saying that they couldn't be there and they're not working in unison, but if the public elected the council, and that's the #1 topic in their strategic that the council elected bodies saw, then why delegate that to people that are selected versus having just the general, keeping it closer to the chest? And that would be something that I would suggest, either putting it into a committee that has a little bit more time and has that focus of strategic planning, or making it its own committee. And we have enough members to do that if possible.
What are you talking about? The Parks Commission?
The Parks Committee, Park and Rec Committee.
We already have one.
No, we don't have, we have a Parks Board online, but
But,
I don't think we
yeah.
have a committee.
Well, the Park Board is actually the ones who is taking up the projects within the parks.
Yeah, no, that's correct. It's not listed on the website. There's nobody in it. It's been blank for since I've gotten in and ever looked at it. It still is. But I'm talking about, we have a safety committee, we have a finance committee, we have a public works committee. It would be a Parks and Rec committee in the council.
Yeah.
So instead of
Okay.
the Public Works take care of those, it would be another committee of 3 members from this council. That would be on the council.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Thank you, Brendan, because for clarifying that, because I would love to see that. Absolutely love to see it as a council-elected committee here first.
So could I put a motion forward to make a Parks and Rec committee right now?
You could put a motion to direct staff to
To
bring
ask-
back edits to the council governance manual, which establishes the council committees. That would be the process to do that. Just one thing I would want to add to that is my 2 cents would be to try to not propagate too many council committees. So staffing's thin.
I would like to make a motion to bring back that and add it to the strategic planning committee then. That wouldn't overburden the staff with more committees, but it would allow it to go to a committee that has that focus, and it's been the number one topic for that one. So if we feel that's a good idea.
I could see it going for that or Public Works.
What would you guys like to do, a separate committee or move it to a committee for strategic planning or not move it at all? My motion would be to move it to the strategic planning committee if I understand the strain on the city.
I'll second.
Are we in discussion?
Yeah, is there a discussion on it? Sure.
I like the ideas, and I just want to like flesh it out. So I could be wrong here, but when I first joined, there were more committees, and I know we tried to combine committees together to make it easier. Was there some reasoning behind why the parks went into Public Works? Was that because of like the oversight of Mark with the staff? Do you think that it'd be beneficial to move that from under him to strategic versus having all the staff that report directly to him not fall under the committee?
We either way, we would have Mark at the meeting. So it is one more meeting for Mark, but it would probably also be another meeting for Nathan, at least for those items, depending on how deep the committee wants to go into conversation. So we're sensitive to that as well. I think we want to use our time wisely and the staff's time wisely. One thing I wanted to mention is there's a big conversation coming, which is exciting, which is the comp plan. And you're going to have a Parks and Recreation element of the comp plan you do now, but we're going to overhaul that. We're going to have a chance to update the whole thing. And so wherever it goes, that's probably partly where that conversation is going to go, because we're going to need feedback from council and from a commission if we're going to use the commission or however you want to proceed. So something to keep in mind. It could go either way. It's really a toss-up. But our thinking in putting this together, and we actually had a discussion internally about, do we lose a focus on parks by doing it? We felt we could maintain it. Whether or not that's happening is kind of, Mark does brief out, as you know, on parks, and we've been able to get Memorial done, and we keep moving Olmsted along. But I think what would be helpful is to understand kind of what the council wants from this discussion, from this added focus on parks. And if it's the plan that's coming, we have to do it. So that part will be in front of you.
Forgive me if I'm wrong, I don't think it would take more staff time than it would for them to meet with us, the elected officials, versus the Arts Committee that was appointed, right? You have a liaison for that?
The mayor is essentially staffing that one.
Okay, so the reason why I like this is because it's coming to the council, the elected officials, to something that we very much care about, and I think it should be here first.
To understand clarity on this motion, so we would just be moving it from one committee to another. We wouldn't be making it its own committee.
There isn't really a committee.
It would be great to make its own committee. We did have 7 committees at one time, and that was a lot. I do agree. When I was the chair of the Parks and Rec Committee, it was a very fun, and there was a lot of things we could have gone with, and there was a lot of areas. So to fold it under Public Works, which is weighed down with its own issues and updates and changes, it hasn't gotten the attention. So yeah, I would prefer it being its own committee, because comp plan, it is the number one thing that we have on our strategic, and it's one of our best assets. But if I understand the city correctly, you guys are tied down with your span of work, and I understand that. So to fold it into a committee, I would suggest the strategic. I don't think it would be too much for Mark to do another meeting, because as of now, it's not getting focus under the Public Works. So it would need that attention anyways, and especially going into parks, and it would need some serious discussion.
Well, I have to step forward here and say that I think it's really, I get it that you don't fully understand that we are truly short-staffed in all of our departments. And Mark really carries a burden, because yes, it's Public Works, but he's in charge of the engineer, the oversight of the projects. He sometimes is the contractor on it. He oversees the wastewater treatment plant, the solid waste and recycling. He oversees the parks, yes, and he oversees the streets. It's a lot of work, and you know, he's getting ready to retire. He's going to retire next June. And I tell you right now, we'll probably need 2 or 3 people to do the job that he's doing now. I think Charlie's providing a bit of wisdom here in that what he's saying is you have the opportunity to have a say-so in it as it goes into the comprehensive plan. And I guess that's what we would like to hear from you about. Right now, we're overwrought with getting parks completed and finding the funding to get those parks completed. So it would be helpful if you could work with us on this. I understand the importance of it. I do. I understand your passion for it, Councilman LaVaca. I do. I hear it and I see it. But it doesn't mean that it's not something that we're not hearing you. We do hear you. We're putting the brochure together. Granted, it's been a slow process, but we wanted to wait till Memorial's completed. It's now completed. We have those pictures. We're waiting for Colleen to finish that up, to finish the editing, and then we'll bring it before you. So we're trying to do what we can with what time we have. We're just asking for a little I'm asking for the staff. I'm asking, please give them a little forbearance that, you know, Charlie's trying to give you some guidance here, and I'm hoping that you will hear that and work with that. Please, that's what I'm asking. Yes, Councilman. Oh.
Thank you. If I may make a suggestion, based on what I've seen in the Public Works, it's very organized from the sense that he has all the projects the city's working on, and Memorial Park, Olmsted Park, those are included in those meetings, but it's the same as with, you know, the 10 other things he's working on. So the parks get a review in the sense of this is what we're building, this is what we're maintaining, but I think what we're trying to hit on is what do we do in the parks? Like how are we gonna utilize these parks that we have, and what's our vision for the parks? And I don't see why we couldn't have the strategic planning committee look at how can we utilize a park better.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And let's put that into the comprehensive plan. Councilman LaVaca has suggested hiring somebody to be a Parks and Rec director. That can actually be part of that comprehensive plan. That can be part of your vision that we can see make happen. And that's what we're saying here, is that you do have a say-so in that. It's just we don't have the manpower, nor do we have the money to do all the things that we hear you saying. They're good plans. We acknowledge that. We want to see that happen, but it has to be a process to make that happen.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is, can we utilize how it's currently set up, but maybe we're just not utilizing the strategic planning committee the way it could be used?
Sure.
If there's an idea for a park
Yeah.
that the council or a council member is interested, could they introduce it in the strategic planning committee?
And it
And
would-
then
yeah.
if they talk about it and they do all the heavy lifting from the council side, bring it to the bigger committee, and so that doesn't put the burden on Mark who's operating all
We're
the
saying
parks.
the same thing.
So I guess
Yeah,
to
we're
get to
saying
the motion that's on the table, I think leaving it in Public Works is okay, so long as the strategic planning knows that they have the authority to reach into parks and come up with ideas and brainstorm. Does that sound?
As a council, you'll all have that opportunity. You all will.
Okay.
And we can easily put it into strategic planning committee, if you want it under that heading, that's fine. But it doesn't negate the fact that you would still have the same people showing up. They'd still have to do the same amount of work. Does that make sense? Councilman Allen?
Okay, I think the undercurrent of a lot of our conversations last meeting and this are, I think what the council wants is a little bit of inclusion on decision-making.
Absolutely, that's what we're
And
saying.
it seems like we've really been stripped out of any inclusionary practices for, not totally, but it seems like we've been neglected for the price of just jamming things down our throats. That's just my own opinion. And That's one thing that's it hasn't embittered me, but it's made life less enjoyable being on the council. So I'm going to leave it there. And this is a personal, not a gripe towards you or towards Charlie. It's just the way it seems, to me, it seems the way that it's been becoming, and I haven't really been a happy follower of it. So anyway,
Yeah,
with all respect, Mayor,
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Councilman Allen. And I appreciate what you say. I guess what I'm trying to say is there's a process to do all this, and I'm just asking that we slow down and do that, and all of you be a part of that process. You're going to be. You have to be. We have to come to you to do this. We have to listen to what you want. You're part of the comprehensive plan. You're actually part of the strategy of the city and the vision of the city. You are all that.
Madam Mayor, on the Parks and Rec Committee in my first year in here, we didn't really see anything kind of come from fruition, and it was be patient and be just be understanding. And same thing with finance, having charts. I was told that we would definitely get those charts online, and this is in year 1 and we're in year 2, and there's no focus there. I think it still goes to a commission is what we're looking at. So two commissions, a park commission and an art commission now is going to be working on this, and it's going to be buried in Public Works. And when they get all done, then they'll bring it to the council, and then they'll have some ideas that we will vote their ideas either through yay or nay. And what I'm suggesting, I think what some of the people here are suggesting, is that we have the ownership over into the strategic planning meeting, and then be able to see not the progress of Memorial Park and the finances of ordering equipment and stuff, but how are we going to incorporate Memorial Park with the teen center and the senior center, and bringing that up to the Reed Street area, and what park we're going to do there, and cycling that into Olmsted and down to Riverfront. Can we create trails? Can we create a circuit? Can we create activities for people to come here and do? And that sounds like it takes a lot of time for the city, but that's why the council wants to discuss it. That's why the council wants to work on it, but we haven't been able to for all this time. So that's why I would say it's not changing anything right now. We're not asking anybody to do anything right now. This will go into next year, of course. But it is one of those things.
It's already, that what you mentioned is already in the comprehensive plan. Mark already has that in the comprehensive plan. There's going to be trails that are going to come all the way from what's the new development there?
Is that with the council? Is that hanging out with the council and discussing? We've had some input, and we don't even know that certain things are getting this or that, and then it comes to us and says, this is what's going to happen, and we got that idea from you, or this happened from you, but we never had any further knew or saw that. So what we're looking at is like there is the overall plan from the executive branch, but bring that with the council, work with the council to move those forward, and then we're all included on like, hey, this is how that circuit, this is trails that are going to come from Burlington or Highway 9, or going to go up around Riverfront, or what can we do with the river or the dog park?
Actually, I do know, because and I'm sure that you were here both times, but Mark does give an update of what we're moving forward with the year's projects. And he's mentioned it twice, that the part of the plan is to do this circular path where it will go to all the parks, and it'll be a walking path. We're also talking about a bike path within the comprehensive plan. You could actually go to the comprehensive plan and read that. In fact, you probably would love that opportunity to read that, and then and maybe you've got ideas that you want to bring forth, to put into that. We do take the comprehensive plan to the Planning Commission first, but that doesn't mean that you can't add to that once you've received it.
So I don't know that I fully saw that plan in the meetings we've had. He's talked about a trail. I don't think I fully understood. It is a trail that I'm going to visually see, or any kind of artistic models or anything like that have gone forth for that. I haven't heard it come from Brendan on the Public Works as far as this taking place, or the comprehensive plan being moving forward with the park circuit, or having something as a big impact for the park. And I didn't, on my end, for chair of the council I was on, or the committee I was on, I didn't really see a lot of that. So I wasn't aware of that. And even in the comprehensive plan, it would be nice to bring that into the strategic committee, I feel, and just have more dialogue to say, the Public Works has got to hit these topics. Mark does a lot of work. He is overtaxed. I fully agree with you on that. And he does a wonderful job. But the strategic planning meeting could have discussions on the overall and where we're at. And so we're looking at, that ability. And with him being so overtaxed with so many projects, having that moved over, kind of like I was saying, like you mentioned, a part-time parks director or a full-time parks director that's hands-on, both would be hands-on. They would be able to take that from his plate, eliminating the heavy workload he has. I would still very much so love to see that take place, because I believe that Parks and Rec could be a very big thing Sedro-Woolley has to offer our community and the surrounding communities. And so I haven't necessarily heard that. I've gone through the comp plan, but I did not see like this inspiring Parks and Rec circuit that is being developed and including these items. So.
I don't know that he called it a strategic walking parks and recs, but it's a path that's going to go all the way around and will connect. So you can walk around the circumference of Sedro-Woolley. Yeah. So, I like what you're saying about the idea of actually bringing in a parks and recs guy. I always have, and as you said, when you brought it up in the meeting, I guess it was the Parks Committee meeting that you were in and I
In a
were
workshop.
in. Yeah, I'm very much for it. And it's simply because we also have some fantastic trails that are happening up at the Swift Center and at the Veterans Park, and we're trying to connect the Centennial Trail with the Cascade Trail here. And so, those are really great plans, and I love your vision, and I get it, and I think it's good.
Yeah, I don't want to burden the city with all that. Like, we have skate park, we have horseback, we have hiking trails, we have tons of trails. We have the future possibly of Reed being a skate or a bike park maybe, or whichever park. But right now, Mr. Burns or Councilman Burns had the idea of just fencing it off, making a dog park. We have the dog park on the other side of the dog park, that whole area back there that is not even being used. And so there are all these things that I haven't seen like in a plan. So that's why I'm saying. Not permanently, but since it's unused area right now, people don't know it's available. So if it's a Reed Street kind of fenced in or a fenced in area to bring dogs, it's not something that ever got moved forward, but I thought it was an interesting idea for empty land. Or whichever gets used in that park, right? But it's a discussion for the strategic to say, we've got Reed Street. It's just sitting there. Would it take, maybe $1,000 to do this? We have the council strategic fund. Let's put it in there. Let's put $1,000 over that. Let's put fencing around the other dog park. It's going to be, couple thousand. We have this fund. Let's do this. And that would be them to discuss and bring before the council. Easy. They would be able to work with Mark. Obviously, it's not instant. There's bids and contracts and all that. But it would be a committee that's voted on by the public, making those decisions and seeing it move faster than what it's done.
I don't want to
Go
beat a
ahead.
dead horse, so I'll just be really quick. All I'm trying to say is that rather than these committee upon committees that are appointed by the administration, what I'm saying is put it into, if you are taking the time to do that, put it into the council. We're all eager and all really want to dive into projects. So don't use that extra time on committee upon a committee. Let us, the elected officials, have a committee and get our teeth in it, because they're telling us what they want, but we can't do anything with it. So that's all I'm saying.
So unless you got some motion's been made.
Before we proceed with that, I did want to say something about what I've heard there. I never felt like anything was rammed down my throat in this. I mean, we all have the right to say no or yes when something comes to a vote. We can say that we want to discuss it further. We'd like to see it go to a committee. And I think that we should all express that in the moment, if we feel that it is a problem, so that we can work through them. I didn't like having the committees cut down from 7 to 5. I like the idea that each council member had a committee that was their pet project, their issues to deal with. I understand that we have staffing issues, that we have financial issues that have been a long time coming, especially with inflation. We have, for a long time, not taken that 1% that really adds up over time. And I'm not just saying the last 5 years. I mean, going back through 20 years, the council just traditionally didn't tend to take it as much from what I saw. And now we are paying the piper. Our city has grown. We need more staff as we want more things to happen. I love a lot of the ideas that Councilman Lavaca and others have brought up tonight, but I also recognize that every one of them cost something to actually put into motion, and that we're asking people to stay late from work if they're not already staying late to do something else afterwards. We're asking them to stay. Usually, I'm guessing they're salaried employees. And so time away from their families and working more, which is part of the job that they are taking on. But we have so much burden on them that I recognize why it was decided to go to 5 committees. I think it is a bit much for the 5 to cover everything. I felt like in planning and business development, the time just flew by. I almost think that we could have had a meeting before every council meeting and still had something to talk about by the time we got to here. But there's a point where you might be over-investigating something. But I still would have enjoyed doing it. Charlie was probably getting a little tired of me wanting to invite people to the meetings and look into things further. But that's my 2 cents on it.
So just, I know that we're moving on to a vote with this, which would be great. There's committee motions that go forward that do cost money. The grant proposal is one of those. That takes up a lot of time with the city. And like you just said, that talking with Charlie, getting a lot of input from him, meetings, things like that, and getting a lot of time. The rest of the council hasn't received that same time, Joe Burns. So you should understand that that's a little bit of a challenge, unless we see like, hey, let's do this or that. Not to say that we probably couldn't freely call you and ask and get that. I'm sure you're an open person, Charlie, but it hasn't been like that. So it's not as cut and dry. There is the idea that there is money. Things do cost money. Things have maintenance, and that costed a lot of city money to move through. So that can't be the only thing that goes forward, right? There has to be a community of council members that are all elected, not just one, and he shouldn't get most of the time if we're all elected. So that's where that would come through. There is a motion. I don't want to do more discussion.
Can I get clarity on the motion? Because I totally see the vision, and I think we just need to focus on execution. Because I think we're all looking at the same goal, and we're trying to figure out what's the way to get to that goal. Because in my opinion, Public Works has to have some oversight of the parks, because the staff, they have ownership of the whole staff for the parks. So what if the Public Works just focused on the infrastructure, maintaining the parks, building the parks, but then the strategic and planning committee, they were the ones that focused on how are we going to utilize them to execute on our mission of bringing people into the parks. And do we need to make a change in order for the strategic planning to understand hey, this is part of your guys' area of expertise now. You're executing on how do you incorporate parks into the city better. And then Public Works, in one of the Public Works meetings, maybe they talk about, drainage is not working right. How are we going to fix that? That would be a Public Works committee thing, and that's a park. But I would see hey, how are we going to utilize Memorial now that it's up? That is a strategic committee thing, in my mind. So I think we were looking at this, do we need to make a change right now? Because how it's currently set up, I think we're just not executing the right way through the committees.
I think that, that's, again, wise words, Brendan. So it does make sense to have infrastructure and then have strategic planning and have parks and rec into 2 areas. And if we can incorporate strategic planning with parks and rec planning, strategic planning, that would be good. And so that would be something that would be needed to move it from infrastructure. Obviously, that could be, I can see where you're going with that, and it would just be another thing. And you can easily accommodate that drainage, putting in equipment, putting up a fence in one meeting. Although it is money spent, so I could see where the 2 kind of get together and they say, hey, one or the other. But one's really looking at how can you utilize all of our parks and how can we beautify them. And if one's saying, well, we should put money here, and these are saying, well, the overall plan, we should really put money in Reed Street versus a fence down here, that might be where we run into some conflict. So I'm not sure if there's a way to actually label strategic planning or / parks and rec planning.
I can just weigh in on that. In the governance manual, there's a description of each committee, kind of what it does. So this could just be a text edit to that, but would still be helpful to have a motion so we can go off and prepare that if that's where council wants to go.
Yeah, I'd be in favor of adding into the strategic and planning committee a strategic, like a call out for how to utilize parks into our overall strategy of the city. I don't know if we need to amend the motion. Like, what's our next step here?
Okay, I'll throw in 2 bits more tonight. I think the Parks and Rec should go into Public Works because they do all the building, the maintenance, the design, all that. That's, I mean, just so we can do it as a council, it doesn't really matter if it's this committee or this committee. So, but I think they should, you always see the Public Works rigs at all the parks and doing all the maintenance and building of, or having restrooms and stuff built. So I don't want to, we could maybe have a Public Works / Parks Committee or something, but I see your vision, but that's something planning and business development committees can get with the Public Works / Parks Committee or something. So I don't know, that's just a thought.
So if possible, make the amend to the motion to have the strategic planning text change to include Parks and Rec development, right? And then have Parks and Rec infrastructure on Public Works and use those 2 terminologies, if that makes any sense. Would that be acceptable? And thank you very much for the wise words.
Yes, I would second that.
All right. Is there any more discussion on this? Okay, so we do have a motion to take to the administration to consider making an amendment in our government's manual, the council government's manual, to amend the parks to say under the strategic committee that they will be looking at Parks and Rec development, whereas under the Parks and Recs, maybe we want to specify that that will just be maintenance only,
Maintenance and.
building and maintenance only?
Yeah.
Design, probably design.
I think infrastructure is probably the proper terminology, wouldn't it?
The only word I might just say, and we can try to do this when we edit it, but was development. So under strategic planning, putting Parks and Rec development, that could get confused with Parks and Rec construction, which would sort of be under infrastructure. So rather than development, we might say development and planning or something. We'll find a way to work.
Yeah, because part of the development would be a little bit of that on that strategic planning, because they would build it, they would maintenance it, but they wouldn't necessarily come up with the design. So Reed Street, new concepts, things like that would probably come out of strategic planning and then go to Public Works to build or to work within that design framework. I mean, obviously it's going to change and Mark's going to say, you can't do this, you can't do that. We're going to see Nate come in and say, hey, this really works. This is really a good idea, but that I've seen it doesn't work. And so we would want that.
Just a quick clarification on process. The way I would see it flowing would be from strategic planning back to the full council, and then from the full council back to Public Works. Because they need, to the full council support in order to go off and do a bunch of work on it.
That would be awesome. Thanks for the clarification.
So if I could just make an amendment, if the council is okay with it, because actually we've heard exactly what it is that you want, and Charlie and I have made notes on this. How about if it's a motion that we take it back to the administration and that they come back with a suggestion of a revised statement? Would that be okay for your approval? And we can make any amendment to it before we actually vote on it. Would that be good? Would you be okay with that?
Yeah.
I'm good with it.
Okay. So, all in favor of that?
Aye.
All right.
Okay. Opposed, any? Okay. All right, good discussion. Okay, on to the business, Planning and Business Development Committee. Councilman Burns.
Well, the 2 main things we looked at this year was the grant program that was rolled over from last year. I didn't start the year as chair. Councilman Owen was before he stepped down. So I was reappointed as chair and able to pick back up the grant program. Now we have that going through the motions as far as people making applications, as you all know. The thing that we haven't actually made it to the council with, I guess I should state, sorry. There is still funds left. We did not use all the funds that was sent to the committee by the full council, and that will likely be left for the next committee to find something to do with or send back to the wider council if they so choose. For the economic development plan, we've been working on that for the past year, basically. We've sat down with economic leaders like EDASC, the chamber, the port, various other groups, developers, trying to get a good idea of what we can do to grow a more robust business community in Sedro-Woolley so that we have more jobs here, so that people are living and working here, not just living here. Seem to be our real goal in that. My hope is that we can move that from the committee in our final meeting on November 8th, but we'll see if we can agree on the text that's currently there, and if we think it's something that we'd like to see the wider council look at. With it being so close to the end of the year, I question whether we let it ride as far as coming to the wider council for the new council, but I kind of want to bring that to all of you so that we can decide what to do from there. I'm fine with either way. I want people to be comfortable with the vision that comes out of it. Tried really hard to make sure that we included as many groups as possible in these ideas. I went out and pounded the pavement. I know other council members did too, to make sure that we went and invited people to come talk to us. Thought we had some really good discussions about what the city has done right and done wrong over the years, and what businesses wanted to see us do to foster more growth for them and give them the ability to create more business for themselves and expand. I believe that's all I have for you.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions for Councilman Burns? Yes.
Maybe not, I mean, I don't know who's going to answer this, but of the little boxes that you have with the, vote yes, vote no, whatever, are we going to get a count of how many, what that actually looked like? I'm just interested in seeing how much of the community actually wanted to participate and what the outcome was from it.
Yeah,
Like
we can
number-wise.
provide the council whatever you'd like. I've got basically a checklist of things related to each grant that I've been checking off, make sure they're complete. And one of the things on that checklist is the percentage of people who voted yes. If the council wants the actual vote numbers, we can give you that as well. It's not a problem.
I just think it would be interesting to see how much engagement it got.
Yeah, my understanding was we would bring the vote numbers, and we can break it down to percentage as well, because I did want to see, if we had 3 people who voted for a project, obviously that's a little different than 300 or 3,000. So that was my understanding from what Councilman Lavaca had brought
Vote more
forward.
than once? Can people vote more than once?
I don't know that we had a mechanism that really prevented people from voting more than once. I think we're on the honor system on that one. That would have been quite the challenge to track.
Because they could have voted in all 3 places, right?
I think that was part of having the council make the final decision, was we eliminated the chance that if somebody did cheat in the community vote, that it ultimately is the council's decision.
So I was on the Planning and Business Development Committee for this year. And one of the things I mentioned in our strategic meeting we had over here, it wasn't a long forum, but we were able to kind of meet at a round table and discuss, was to get 2 of our chairs pulling some of the heads of the businesses of various places together. And it would have been Joe and it would have been Sarah, because finance and business. Later on that, we went into the next committees, and we ended up having an opportunity to doing that same thing with the planning committee. And so getting those people in, and that was very, very helpful and informational from that aspect. And so it was nice to see their input and see where that goes. And I know that people were interested in seeing, like, hey, can we come back? Can we discuss how that worked out, or did we make that impact? And those are items that we have discussed. Now, in that, we focused a lot. We kind of switched over towards the grant and kind of had on the grant, because that was a hot topic for the council. After we got through the grant, we talked about doing the rest of the ARPA, which is 140 through the business planning meeting, working with the Arts Commission and kind of figuring out how to spend that. And it was my purview to send that to a different committee for them to bring forth ideas to spend that money. And I think right now that's gone though. It's going to go toward possibly an ER&R fund because that's what was requested during that meeting. So it's something that we obviously have to consider during our last workshop with Kelly because the ER&R was was short. So those are big things. Obviously, the rest of the council strategic fund and the rest of that ARPA fund. So it depletes the resources we have for probably other projects in the committee. It'll slow down our committees going into next year, sure, but that is something that we had. So the grant program, I am interested to see how that works out, and it would be cool to get an update on that at one of our council meetings coming up. Maybe not the full vote or seeing where it's at, but whoever's telling the vote, seeing this is what the community engagement is. And if we even wanted to put that online, that might be something that we see on our website.
Yeah, we're putting the applications online, so we can certainly put the checklist sheets online as well as we get those completed. And they'll also be in your packet, so all that material will be in your packet. I'll be tallying the votes, collecting them, going out. And we got another application recently, so Happiest Teas on Earth has requested money to help with awning replacement at their site. So that's an $8,500 request. So we've got two $10,000 requests and now an $8,500 request. The $8,500 will go to vote on October 9th and go for 2 weeks. 2 weeks is kind of what it's settling on. So they'll be out there until the 23rd. So when I take the other ones out on October 9th in the morning, I'll replace it with Happiest Teas on Earth proposal and roll that for 2 weeks. And then you'll get the first two applications in front of council at the end of October, and then the next application will come to you for action at the first meeting in November. So that's where we are currently. If I get another one in the next few days, then we'll roll that out October 9th if it's complete as well.
Hey, Charlie, to that point, I talked to a business over the weekend, and they seemed very interested, so I'm trying to get them the material. When do they need to have it by in order to be included in that second?
If they want to hit October 9th, it'd be helpful if they can get it to me in the next, that's Monday. So
Okay.
so tomorrow would be great. Friday at the very latest, like morning.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll sync up with them.
All right.
Okay. Yes, go ahead.
As far as what's left from the ARPA funds, my personal wish would be to see it go to whoever the next committee is or another committee for the council to do something with. I appreciate that the ER&R is behind on funding. We are always going to find a leak to plug if we are doing that. I think that there's always going to be a time where we could find something that isn't funded properly or that the council should spend it on blank. If we can find a good thing to use it for that's going to better the community, I would be more inclined towards that. But that's just my personal opinion with it. I have no issue with leaving it for whoever's next. But that would be my belief on it. My main goal now, since we only have the one meeting, is working on that economic development plan, just because we spent so much time on it this year, especially with all the meetings the three council members have done. I'd love to see it go to the wider council to, if nothing else, find out what you think of it. So, thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to kind of say one final item since I'm going out soon. The planning and business development committee's been like the ideal thing that I thought when I got into the council of how it would operate. And I think we can, learn like what Councilman Lavaca is saying, this is really how all the committees should be working. The amount of stuff that we talked about, it was by far one of the funnest times I've had on council was in these committees with Councilman Lavaca and Councilman Burns and businesses, like inviting businesses in, hearing what actually works for them. And then having the staff, rise to our energy level and actually execute on some of these to get the grant program out. I know you guys put a lot of time in, and I think it's something that all of us can take to heart of, like, we can accomplish a lot if we all work on it. And I think, another component of that too is maybe it's not known, but Councilman Burns put a lot of time and energy into all of this work behind the scenes, bringing it to the committees. And, it's easier to say, well, staff was doing all this extra stuff, but I know for a fact that Councilman Burns put a lot of his own time, his own energy to make these things happen. And so I think if we want to be leaders, we need to step up and be more like that, where we use these committees to be the grounds that we take one of our ideas and we put our sweat and our time into it, and we know that the staff is willing to step up and meet us at our energy level. And now that we have a very clear process moving forward of if this is what works, this is what we want to do, the chair brings it to the wider council, and then staff can execute the way we've done 2 times now recently. I think that would really address Councilman Lavaca's concern, because I do think everyone should get fair treatment. And I think that that opportunity is there. I appreciate that feedback. And I think that now that staff is aware, I hope that we all have a consensus that moving forward, this is how we can execute on it. Thank you.
Yeah, I would definitely agree, and that did take some work, and it's appreciated. I think the difference on that council meeting would be relational, right? So I think that with the Parks and Rec, we did have a good forum, good discussion. In fact, the first one I went to, there was like 4 or 5 people at the table I had never even known of or met, and I still don't know who they are, but they were weighing in, and I was like, oh, who are these people? This isn't normal, I thought, for a committee. So it was my first experience on a committee. But there was energy, there was desire, there was things that were made up, there was photographs of the city and all the entrances and a lot of stuff that went into it. But I believe that when the grant proposal came through, it was at a meeting where one of the members wasn't there, and Glenn was there, and then Charlie, you said, well, you can throw it to motion with the council. You never told me that with mine, not to say I shouldn't have known. Clearly you didn't necessarily know either. So I didn't receive the same treatment. So leadership or form of those meetings, I would like that same decorum in future meetings. I would like that same energy in future meetings, same advice from the city saying, hey, this is probably your next step, versus a relational. It made it seem like, I like you better, so I'm going to work with you closer. Let me take you under my arm. That might have not happened. That probably didn't happen, but it felt that way. So, and I'm trucking around not really sure, like, what's my next step? And I should have known. I should have put more energy in it. I own that. That's my fault. But I think there was a difference in the way it turned out. It wasn't necessarily that same way. There was two things that went forth similar, but one got a little guidance. So, and we'll get that going forward, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, I just want to say that, so the business committee, that you've spent a year, actually, working on this grant, putting it forward. It took a lot of time, and it took a lot of energy, and you did make that happen. You did step up as leaders and make that happen, and that was really important. And you gave the grace to the staff, as we had time and energy to work with you on that. So it's much appreciated. And I hope you don't ever feel that you're not appreciated, because you are. So, yeah. So go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to share a bit of a nuance in the committee experiences. So with the Business Development Committee and then the Planning and Business Development Committee, I'm the primary staff to that committee. Same with strategic planning. So I'm doing the minutes, I'm contacting the chair, I'm working with them, make sure items are organized and the meetings flow in the way it should. There's more advice provided in that, and there's more back and forth with the chair. In the other meetings, like the Parks Committee, I'm just sitting there as the city administrator, really supporting the staff who are supporting the committee. So certainly I apologize if I could have said more in those moments, but I'm not as actively engaged in that stuff as I am as the primary staff person. And that's just based on wherever the mayor assigns me for that year.
I think I had Mark, we all had kind of different people, but they were also very staffed or very taxed. And I think we were directed, like, maybe don't bug them, don't tax them. So it didn't feel comfortable reaching out. It didn't feel comfortable talking to them after a little while. I wasn't asking them to do anything particularly, but I was asking for advice. And I think that got to the way where it's like, hey, don't bug them. It wasn't excessive advice by no means. I have email accounts of all of it. It wasn't excessive at all. But it was one of the things where we probably didn't have that same go-to. Obviously, he was busy, and you being there, I didn't know that was the kind of the structure, because you were there on a lot of them. The mayor was there, so I just didn't know. But I do appreciate the work you put in, Joe, and I do appreciate the work the city put in. I'm just trying to make sure that going forward, committees run with more equity in the ability to share each other's resources. And if we have certain liaisons that maybe don't have time or skill set, that is something we can find a way to overcome together.
That's
Thanks, guys.
Well, that's good. Thank you. We appreciate that. Good advice, and we will take that to heart. I want you to know that. Yeah, Councilman Burns.
Just to say this about the grant program, and in general, when you're chair of a committee, I asked. That was probably the main reason that I got the answer of what do I do from here is, well, there's two of us. What do I do? I'd like to see this move forward. What's the next step? I try to remember to always ask the question or think of the questions I have to ask. And I probably did email Charlie too much on it because I'm a little relentless when I get a hold of something. But that's the thing I would suggest everyone do is just ask the questions. And if they're too busy, they might get back to you in a couple of days, but I'm sure they'll get us answers.
Okay. Go ahead.
On that note, can I ask a question on the next step? Because I personally really like that project, and I don't know where it's even at right now, for the crossing. And I mean, I was fully supportive of it. I was just waiting for it to kind of go through a committee. And I know the Arts Commission is looking at it, but just hearing tonight, that's something the council.
What the Arts Commission is looking to do is different than what.
Okay,
Nick
so
said.
even more
So-
so that I want to see it come to fruition. I just, what's our next step?
The designs on that one were really good. I believe I asked for it on the next steps. I was told, drum up some support with the city, with businesses, which I did. People were willing to donate money, and I talked about that to Charlie a little bit, but I didn't get the same answer. However, it is, the designer, Morgan Benson, has designed a few signs around town. He designed one over at the park, at Riverfront Park as memorial in that fenced place. He has experience. He lives right at the railroad track. He's asked me, where are we with this? And I would love to get back to him and say, yeah, we've got city support. So I'm not on the Parks Commission or the committee anymore. I did write up full packets, take it to the Rotary, have the full documentation, have preemptive drawings that I wanted to bring before the council and have weigh in to say, maybe we should do an awning with lights for, sculpture sharing with other communities. And maybe we should do this for the awning, have it dimensional with backlights, or do this shape, or do this name. Throw in that input. The general idea was there, the template was there, but I really wanted the whole to work that out and then see what the community thought about it. But it does take the city. So it's not gone, it's just tabled, and I would love to bring that back even into next year when I'm on a committee that I can, or, even the Planning and Business Development Committee, and bring that back up to the council to see if the council would be willing to pursue that going forward. With that much city support, hopefully it's still there. The signs were somebody committed to making all the signs for us, the overhead signs out of carbon fiber, and that was really cool and generous. The uprights, that was another one. Another person was committing to supporting, and then BNSF offered to use their equipment to drive the pilings if needed. I mean, it was moving forward. I lacked the skill set at the time and direction to get that to the next step before the council. So I will get it back there. And it's matured since then, which is nice, but it is stalled.
Councilman Burns.
I would actually like to make a motion to bring this before the council for us to consider sending it to Public Works Committee with all of the documentation that Councilman Lavaca and the city might have on it, to look at it for further review and try to put it into planning. Is that?
Yeah, WASDOT, did you get the clearance from WASDOT?
We did not. That would be part of support from the city. So there are various things I can do, get an engineer, get designs, meet with people, meet with businesses. There's only so much a freshman council member who's working a full-time job, had other things, was in school that I could do. So that's what the city, if we vote this forward, the city would have to agree to take on some of that to help support moving this along. The idea, going both ways through that and seeing a beautiful sign that is about Sedro-Woolley that the community all came into and have their little business signs and all that on, that would be awesome. And you can hang banners on it for Blast from the Past and all that, because it would be off to the side. They'd be towed in, so the banners wouldn't be over the roadway, but they would be off the side, so you see baseball tournament this way, Blast from the Past, Roger Lodeo, and anybody can hang a banner. There'd be room with backlight or light forward on those. It's great. in my mind, I see it, and it's beautiful. So it would be great. I would second the motion, yeah.
Is there, so, say again.
There's,
I'm sorry.
I would like to make a motion that I know we have to bring it to the council first. So I'd like to make a motion that the council consider sending the idea of an archway on both sides of the railroad track on Highway 20 overpass to the Public Works Committee for them to flesh out exactly what's to be required and get designs, work through approvals to bring it back to the wider council with a plan.
Is there a second on that?
second,
All
can
right.
for the discussion part, I think we should also include the strategic planning, because I feel like this is a prime candidate for the council to really flesh it out and then work with Public Works for the detailed work of it as well.
All
'Cause
right.
it sounds like there's two components. There's the construction, but there's also the like strategic, how are we going to involve the businesses and all these other players within the community. I think it could even, be two committees could work on different parts of this, couldn't they?
Okay. Charlie, do you have that written down?
I have it written down, and the only, I guess, caution on including two committees is going to move slower. So that's just something to acknowledge for council, because strategic planning is going to come up before the end of the year, and then it's going to need to go to Public Works next year, the way they're set up currently, unless we're going to have special meetings, which will going to be up to the chairs. But that's the only piece of it I can see. And Councilmember Lavaca, I'm trying to recall if you're on strategic planning or not, but
I am not.
since you're kind of the sponsor of this thing, I mean, it might make sense, if possible, for it to go somewhere where you're located so that you've got all the connections and you've got.
As I understood Sarah's motion, and the council agreed, was that next year they'll be on new committees.
Yes.
So, and then they'll be on those committees for 2 years. So that's something that Councilman Lavaca could be a part of. And I'm losing my voice, so we should close the meeting.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Or
Okay.
That was for favor.
Okay, good deal. Have a good night, everybody. We're adjourned.